Hello everyone, welcome to another video by Legacy IAS where we are going to cover a very important, much less talked about, but something that has the potential of enhancing your mains scores. All right, here we're going to talk about a lot of directive words which kind of ask you to write your answer in a certain way. Okay, so what do each of these directive words mean? Sometimes people often get confused and sometimes people feel they are more or less the same. Let's try to understand the nuance differences between them so that you just have a little even better edge in terms of writing your answers and scoring better marks. Now, as far as the word discuss is concerned, okay, if we look at some of the examples of discuss that are there, the idea is the word discuss basically means that you don't really have to criticize. Okay, you essentially just have to give analytical inputs. Okay, you have to give both sides, or you have to show both sides or share both sides arguments, but you don't really have to really conclude very strongly on what you're trying to say. So let's say if we look at, say for example, this is the first, second, or any of these questions for that matter, there have been various statehood demands in India since independence. Okay, what have been the reasons for such demands? Discuss. Now, in this particular question that you have, you should ideally focus 80% of your answer towards discussing the reasons, the background, and you can also conclude it with the effects of such kind of statehood demands. Okay, you can support it by giving it a lot of examples which highlight, and with a subtle instance you can give some amount of analysis that what are the what are the different perspectives with regards to this kind of reasons that we have before us, so that the examiner has an understanding that this person is not just stating, let's say, some facts that the person has read in the newspaper or in the book, but is being able to use the example to support that argument that they're trying to make. So in some way, just give only primarily focus on the question in place and start it with a little bit of a background in it. All right, you can conclude it with effects, and that should basically cover your discuss. Now, if we look at the word describe, okay, we are essentially talking here of the main features or characteristics. Now, if we look at the questions which are also there, we kind of get the idea that we are essentially, or the question is rather essentially asking us to, kind of share all the important points that are there, let's say with regards to the rubber producing countries. Okay, so we'll have to probably talk about the kind of locational requirements, or for that matter, any other requirements that is there for rubber. Then why are these countries which are examples of the rubber producing countries, okay, why are these countries so very appropriate for the rubber production in those country, and also in the second part write about the major environmental issues which are being faced. So it's pretty much describe is a kind of a direct question. All right. Similarly, if we look at this question, describe the characteristics and type of the primary rocks. So while describing these two, you can additionally talk about, let's say, give examples. Mention their characteristics, okay, and the type. So here we are basically kind of sticking very specifically to what is being asked in that sense. All right. Now, but if we move forward and look at analyze and examine, okay, and if you look at the questions that are essentially there, we are expected to be in a mode of evaluation or in some kind of investigation. All right, we have to mainly, kind of scrutinize either an S or a Z. All right, so what it says, industrialization and colonization complemented each other in establishing British supremacy across the globe. All right, so now firstly you have to delve deeper into the statement that is being given to you. Okay, first there has to be some content on the basis of which this statement has come up in the question. So there has to be some authenticity, some value, some merit. First we have to look into those merits of the question, of the statement, that yes, they have complemented each other and have facilitated, okay, the establishment of British supremacy across the globe. So then you're going to talk about, let's say, start from the Industrial Revolution and the search for, markets as well as raw materials and areas, and how that kind of moved further towards, kind of establishing colonies in different countries. So things like this, where you have to really kind of delve little more deeper and definitely kind of come up with some kind of investigation that as to what extent is this correct. If that is true, what are the arguments in support of this statement and also against it. So here the analysis has to actually cover a large part. Say for example, let's say it covers definitely around 50 to 60% of your question. So when you're giving statements, arguments, the arguments are also including this analysis. Similarly, if we look at the potential of wind energy, okay, and the reason for the limited spatial spread. So we're going to talk about the limitations here, the challenges, the shortcomings of the spread of this energy in India, and then analyze that what is the ground reality in India which is really prohibiting such a situation. So this is the way in which you are kind of going slightly into more of an investigative mode and trying to reason things out. However, if we look at comment, we essentially have to talk about, with regards to comment, quite similar to, let's say, when we are examining, where we have to not just kind of give different aspects or show different aspects of the problem, we also have to highlight upon or also have to kind of give an opinion. As it is, when we use the word comment in general discussion, we kind of refer to it as giving our own opinion on something. So comment is the same way as far as the Indian scenario, or for that, UPSC scenario is concerned. We are essentially talking about what is your opinion in this scenario. So here a lot of your own inputs are required. A lot of your newspaper readings, a lot of your collating or connecting between different subjects. Okay, so what is your deductive understanding? That can also be used. So comment can really kind of match with other things, but here you essentially can take recourse to a lot of these supporting documents to really make an idea, to which is trying to say that based on what you have read otherwise and based on what the situation is, this is what you are saying, or this is this is the social angle to it, or this is the political angle to it, or this is the economic angle to it. So using these things, you're basically commenting in a much more holistic fashion and giving your opinion in a much more holistic fashion. If we look at the next word, which is explain, it is similar to elaboration or elaborate. All right, so you essentially here have to talk about how the melting of the ice is basically affecting the weather as well, weather patterns as well as the human activities which are there. So you have to kind of detail out. All right. So in a way, you have to again talk and elaborate upon the different aspects which are there. But when we move to critically examine or critically analyze, you have to be very careful about how you're approaching this particular topic. Firstly, the fact that any question which is having the directive of critically examine or analyze for that matter, you essentially have to talk, or rather, they are expecting something out of you. And they're trying to judge the kind of tilt you are having. What kind of a knowledge base are you having? If you are having one kind of a knowledge base, how much are you able to talk about the other things also? Moreover, how much of analysis can you do in terms of the good and the bad side? And towards the end, are you able to come to a positive conclusion? The topics that are also there in critically examine are very strong statements. They are statements which generally have strong arguments on both sides. So when there are strong arguments on both sides, A, it tests your knowledge. B, it tests your power of deduction coming to a conclusion. All right. And it also just wants to check your understanding of the subject, your conceptual clarity. How much have you really understood what this topic is all about? How well read you are. So a lot of these things are basically from the perspective of critically analyze. Sometimes you can even conclude with an alternative to what the question is saying, which is a great approach or a great conclusion to have. It also just shows like you are almost like a strong and a much more competitive and a much more constructive opposition, let's say, for example. So you try to really show that both sides are very, very strong, but towards the end, we have to come to this particular conclusion for a more sustainable future ahead. Right? In that sense, this kind of a statement or any of these, like if you look at the questions also, regionalism is a threat to maintaining unity in diversity in India. Now, there are such strong arguments in favor of regionalism and in favor of maintaining unity and diversity. So, you'll really have to kind of find a balance. And this is more of, these questions are more of dilemma based questions. Dilemmas which are definitely there in the minds, in the work life of civil servants, which they are essentially also trying to, test at this particular stage. All right. So here we are trying to say the impact of social media on Indian society. Now there are positives, there are also negatives. Which side are you going to take? What is your approach? What is your thought process in this? So your your answers are a reflection of your approach that you're trying to take. So it's always suggested to have a very, very positive conclusion, very constructive, rather not just positive, very constructive conclusion, so that towards the end you're really able to make a mark and express that this is how ideally we should be strong yet keep our values intact and do what is right. So a lot of these aspects are basically getting judged while you are writing that particular answer. So try to look into what the question is demanding. That is the first point, that the first thing that you need to keep in mind as far as writing a mains answer is concerned. So the demand of the question, if that is right, then half of your task is done. So I really hope that this particular video, the directives, understanding of these directives and accordingly starting to write your answer will really benefit you during your mains exam. If you've liked this video, let us know. We'll be able to understand that yes, we have been communicating it well. Also, help those of your fellow aspirants by sharing this particular video and subscribe for more such answers relating to UPSC at Legacy IAS. Thank you so much.